Hey, what's going on, guys? In this Lost the Plot video, I want to talk about everyone in the industry focusing too much on Superfoams as the be-all end-all for deciding what shoes are the most relevant, which shoes people should be going for, and just giving a little bit more perspective and nuance for you all for consideration when you're thinking of purchasing your next pair of shoes. So the first thing when we're thinking about Superfoams is that what I generally am referring to there are the foams that most people are thinking of in the racing shoes that end up trickling down into the other categories, whether it's things like ATPU, where it first showed up in a lot of the racing models, and now we're seeing them in more of the daily trainers, we'll say, where it's like the Mega Blast, the Super Blast 3, and then the Topo Spectre 3 as well. But even the legacy we'll call super trainers, right? Whether it's Piba foam that we first saw in shoes like the Alpha Fly and the Vapor Fly, and now we're seeing that being much more democratized across the board, whether we're seeing it in daily trainers all the way up through super trainers. But the first thing, and I always keep my notepad here, so if I'm ever looking down, it's just to make sure I'm hitting the points that I wanted to outline, is that what is the actual point of these foams, right? And the point of the foams is they're all going to be purpose dependent based off of the shoe models that they're in themselves. And I think it's very important for everyone to realize, for example, that the Piba foam that you're going to get in, let's say, something like the Puma Deviate Pure is going to be a different Piba foam than what you're going to get in something like what was in the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3, for example, right? Is that one of the things that I think everyone is over-indexing or over-focusing on is it Piba? Is it ATPU? But it's like, okay, but at the end of the day, what is the purpose behind it, right? And we can infer what the purpose of the shoes are based off of things like what we see in the overall product marketing of a shoe, right? But that's only going to give us a particular data point. As I say in all of my shoe reviews, shoes are tools. So, and part of it being a tool and what part of the component of that tool is going to be the foam itself, but that's not necessarily going to be the be-all end-all. A Piba, for example, in something like the Rad UFO is going to react very differently for training purposes compared to something like, let's say, what's in the Puma Magnify Nitro 3, right? Those are both Piba foams. One is much more intended to be and have more range. And again, when we're thinking of it overall, and this is actually going to be point number 2, is that the foam compound itself is just one small portion of what is going to inform the overall experience of the shoe. What do I mean by that? So when we're thinking of the foam, right? The foam is a material, but a material is not just going to determine the overall characteristics. Other things are going to be taken into account as well, right? Whether it's going to be, what is the actual density or the durometer of that material? What is the overall shape of that material? And what is the overall, the way that the shoe is being manipulated, right? Are they going to inject it with nitrogen, a very common thing that Puma does with their shoes, right? Or is it going to be more purist based off of whatever that compound's original form is? But at the end of the day, all of those things need to be taken into account. One of the things that I thought that was really interesting was Blue from Rad, is that he had mentioned that one of the things that they had noticed when they were doing their testing, when they were first trying to come out with the Rad UFO, is that Piba foam reacts differently based off of the colors that they apply to the shoe, right? So, and that is something that's been really interesting to me, because I remember hearing that. I have a white pair of Rad UFOs, and I always thought that that shoe was definitely more so a comfort cruiser. I didn't really get the overall substantial firmness that a lot of people said that they got in being able to pick up the pace. I always thought that that foam compressed a little bit more, and now I'm wondering if it's because I have a white pair, and I'm wondering if the other pairs that other people were saying where they were getting a lot more of that up-tempo capability are from a pair that came with a different color. And I think that's one of those very underrated things for all of us to consider, right? Is, okay, I understand that there's Piba in a shoe, but what exactly did they actually do with it? How is it tuned? And again, tuning, a simple way to look at that is tuning it based off of the density or the durometer, but then also tuning it based off of the overall shape of the shoe, right? A good example of that for me is something like the Adidas Hyperboost Edge. I love that foam material, but the reason why it doesn't work out for me overall is because the way that that shape is tuned, it's not conducive to the way that I run in an overall favorable manner, which is why it ended up being relegated to 1 or 2 runs a week, as opposed to a shoe like the Rad UFO that I could take it out for a myriad of different runs, just because that overall geometry and the way it is tuned was more conducive for me. Another thing that I think is really important to call out, and I've said this several times, is that we're, in my opinion, are in the late stages of the shoe game. And what I'm referring to there is that I think a lot of people are over-indexing on, oh, well, ATPU is giving me 93% energy return versus PIBA that's giving 88% return. And it's, to me, it's pretty silly, because are we really arguing over a quote unquote 5% energy return difference that, when you're actually thinking about it, it's predominantly marketing speak, right? Because is there, as far as I'm aware, I would love to be corrected on this, and if someone can correct me, that would be phenomenal. But as far as I'm aware, there is no actual industry standard for what energy return means. So for example, if you go on Run Repeat and the way that they do their energy return, it's just a simple machine that's going to hit the foam and then bounce up. But that's not how shoes operate in the real world. And that's one of those things where, when some people were arguing with me about the ATPU in the Triumph and saying like, oh, well, it's supposed to have just as good of energy return as the Mega Blast. That's not how it played out, because the real world application, depending on how you run, the overall drop of the shoe, the overall geometry, the density, all of that is going to make a big difference on the overall experience that you're going to be getting out of the shoe. And so when we're thinking of things like, is it PIBA, and everyone chucking PIBA for ATPU, and everyone saying like, oh, if it's not ATPU, then they're just using an outdated foam. I just think that's silly nonsense, because again, and I've used this phrase before, and it's something that I always try to keep myself grounded in, is majoring in minors. Why is everyone majoring or focusing on these minute details? The reality is, for a lot of us as runners, and I'm someone who, my marathon time is a 3:28. That was a PR I set earlier this year. I don't genuinely think that me paying $80 to $100 more for an ATPU Superfoam is going to be the difference between me hitting my next PR or not. I think there's a lot more value in us focusing on things that actually move the needle, like getting more runs in, getting our mileage up. Shoes, again, at the end of the day, are a tool. They're a tool that are part of a much larger totality of what makes and determines how we all actually perform and run. And I think that's something that everyone needs to be reminded of at the end of the day. Is it fun to always be thinking of like, oh, what's the newest foam? Yes, absolutely. Variety is the spice of life, and being able to have a myriad of different foams and experiences when we're out there running every day, I think that's phenomenal. But arguing and thinking that that is going to be the difference maker, I believe at the end of the day, is a fool's errand, because the reality is, like I said before, right, is that if we're arguing between minute percentage differences, I think a lot of us are missing the plot of what these shoes and what the foams are for. I think there was a giant leap from what we had before with like EVA, but at where we've gone in the last few years, I just don't really see the overall necessity for the newest and greatest foam, right? I think there's a big plateau that's happening outside of what we're seeing with those super racers, which is a whole other video that I want to get to at some point. But I think we're really reaching end games here, right? And it's really going to come down to what works for you. And that's going to be the last thing that I want to close on here. And my final point is, find the foam, find the shoe, find the geometry, and find the preference that works for you as an individual. I'll give you a perfect example. For me, the one foam that I have found that has been very consistent to me is the foam that is used in the Dynafish Xiaoyan. It was the foam in the Evo SL that actually made me realize, oh, I really like the TPEE. It just works well for me. It works, and I think, and this is generally speaking a recommendation I would give to bigger runners, is that I think that this midsole foam, TPEE, is one of the best out there because of how robust it is. It's very consistent, it's dense, it gives good energy return, and it just feels solid underfoot. The only problem with the Evo SL is that it had that medial side cut that I could feel when my ankle would get a lot of pain when I would run in it too much. That was the only problem with that shoe, was the geometry. So I'm very much so looking forward to the Evo SL2. That looks like that fixes that problem, and I'm very excited for it. But that's what I think it really comes down to at the end of the day, is find the foam that works for you. And the newest foam isn't always going to be the best foam. And I think that's really something that everyone needs to remind themselves and ground themselves in at the end of the day. It's not necessarily, oh, well, it's PIBA, so it's gonna die super quick, versus what we had heard a few years ago. I remember there were people talking about PIBA being more consistent over the long haul. And actually even Blue, in a podcast with the Believe in the Run crew, had even mentioned that the PIBA foam actually got better energy return, although it compressed more the more you ran in it, and that's why the Rad UFO has that consistency over hundreds of miles, right? It's like, but again, that goes back to my earlier point, it's not just the foam compound itself, it's also the other characteristics that go into it. It's the same thing like quality of material as well at the end of the day. The silverware that you're getting from Walmart is not necessarily going to be the same silverware that you're getting from Costco or from a fancier place that I don't even know where people get their silverware from. Those are the only two I could think of. Or let's say IKEA, for example. There's like Walmart, IKEA, and then you can get the nice Costco silverware sets, right? There's different qualities that also need to be taken into account as well. But at the end of the day, it's all about finding the foam that works best for you. It's not necessarily the newest foam. And so with that being said, I would love to get all of your thoughts on this down below. I know it's something that, generally speaking, everyone gets really excited about every year once TRE comes out, right? Is like, what's the newest foam? What's the newest model? Is it gonna have the latest and greatest? What's the energy return? I just think we all need to just ground ourselves and temper our expectations a little bit more. And I think it would serve us well. But again, would love to hear from you all. So with that being said, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think down below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. And if you didn't and you disagree, please also let me know. And by no means am I saying we need to stop innovating on foams. I'm just questioning where we are in terms of the advancements over the next few years. So that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll talk soon.